Vengeance follows Elijah Carter, a gifted black boy from small-town Georgia, who rises from childhood racism and humiliation to become a global tech powerhouse. Fueled by anger and brilliance, he builds an empire not just to succeed, but to upend the system that tried to erase him. When he returns to America, powerful and unbending, he must decide, will he fight the old world on its terms, or build something that makes it irrelevant? If you liked the video and subscribe to the channel, let's move on to our story. Enjoy watching. The first time Elijah Carter tasted injustice, it had the bitter sting of metal and the slap of cold linoleum under his knees. He was 8 years old. Dollar General, Easton, Georgia. A dusty little town where the summer stuck to your skin and silence swallowed the truth. He had come in with a single precious quarter clenched in his palm, sweat making it stick like glue. His mama had said he could buy anything under 50 cents if he didn't cause trouble. She was working the night shift at the diner again and didn't have time to take him herself. But he was old enough now. She trusted him. He wanted gum. The blue kind that snapped when you chewed it. He remembered standing in the candy aisle, counting slowly, whispering numbers to himself. 1, 3. His fingertip brushed the plastic wrap when a hand, rough and sudden, grabbed his wrist. "What you got there, boy?" the store clerk barked. Elijah blinked, startled. I was just looking, sir." The gum hit the floor. The clerk didn't care. 2 minutes later, he was sitting on the dirty tile, hands behind his back like a criminal. He could hear the jangle of keys. The call to the sheriff. The words caught him red-handed. He tried to speak, tried to explain. But his voice was too small and the man too loud. By the time the police arrived, lights flashing, his mama had gotten there first. She came in like thunder. "What the hell is going on?" Cassandra Carter didn't shout often. She didn't need to. But that night her voice cracked like a whip. Her baby boy was crying. The gum was still sealed. The quarter was still in his palm. No charges were filed. No apologies were made. Just a warning glare. A threat in a southern drawl. And a silence on the car ride home that said everything. That night Elijah asked, "Why'd he think I stole it?" Cassandra turned from the wheel, her jaw tight. "Because he didn't see you. He saw what he thought you were." "What's that mean?" "It means some people don't need a reason." He didn't fully understand. Not then. But he felt it, like a weight in his chest that would never lift. That was the first time. Not the last. At school, his third-grade teacher always seemed surprised when he turned in his homework early. When he read faster than the other kids. When he used words like injustice and deliberate. She'd frown and ask, "Did someone help you with this?" And he'd shake his head, confused. At 10 he got suspended for disruptive behavior, after he spoke up when a white classmate called him a slur. The teacher hadn't heard it, but she had seen Elijah stand up, fists clenched, eyes burning. "You need to control your temper," the principal said, voice syrupy and fake. "You don't want to become a problem child." He wasn't a problem. He was a boy trying to be heard. Cassandra came down to the school with a notepad, a legal aid pamphlet, and a look that made the secretary stammer. The suspension stayed. But the fire in Elijah grew. Their apartment was small, just one bedroom, a couch bed, and a window that never fully shut. The trains rattled by every night, shaking the walls. Roaches skittered behind the stove. Sometimes the lights flickered out. But his mother kept it clean. Kept it sacred. That apartment was her fortress, and in it, Elijah was her king. She worked 2 jobs. Diner by day. Janitor by night. Sometimes both on weekends. But she still found time to ask about his day, quiz him on vocabulary, and rub his back until he fell asleep. "You're not what they call you," she'd whisper. "You're brilliant. You're beautiful. You belong." He believed her even when the world didn't. Books became his sanctuary. The library became his second home. He read everything, comic books, science manuals, history texts. He devoured biographies of black heroes. Frederick Douglass, Katherine Johnson, Huey Newton, and Maya Angelou. He read the autobiography of Malcolm X 3 times before he was 12. Wrote essays about W.E.B. Du Bois and recited Langston Hughes poems aloud in his room like battle cries. But knowledge didn't stop the stairs. Didn't stop the cop car that rolled slowly down his street whenever he walked home from school in his hoodie. Didn't stop the corner store clerk who followed him through every aisle. Didn't stop the girl in 7th grade who liked his jokes until her father saw them laughing together and transferred her to another school. By 13, Elijah was quiet, focused. He got straight A's, ran track, avoided trouble. But trouble didn't need a reason to find him. One day after practice, he and his best friend Jamal were walking home when a police cruiser stopped. No sirens. Just two white officers with cold eyes and tight mouths. "You boys got ID?" Jamal laughed. "We're 13, man." It escalated fast. Elijah was slammed against the hood. Jamal shoved to the curb. Hands searched their pockets. Nothing was found. No apology given. No report filed. Just humiliation. Later that night, alone in his room, Elijah stared at his ceiling, fists clenched so tight they trembled. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He just burned. It wasn't the kind of rage that made you punch walls or curse God. It was quieter, sharper. The kind that sat inside your bones and said, "One day they'll regret underestimating me." That was the night he stopped believing in fairness. That was the night he started planning. He didn't have the words for it then, not exactly. But something inside him hardened. A realization that the rules weren't made for him, and never had been. So he'd make his own. Not out of hate. Out of precision. Elijah Carter was just a boy in a broken world. But that world didn't know what it was creating. By 14, Elijah Carter had learned 3 things. 1. Smart wasn't enough. 2. Being right didn't matter. 3. Silence could be armor. So he became a ghost, present but never too loud, impressive but never threatening. He made teachers admire him, not fear him. He cracked jokes that made other kids laugh without making anyone uncomfortable. He kept his hoodie off in stores. He watched, calculated, and he waited. That year, a new guidance counselor named Mr. Alden arrived at Easton High. White, mid-30s, curly hair like he'd forgotten to brush it. Wore jeans with his blazers and talked like he was fresh off a podcast. He asked questions no one else did. "What do you want to do, Elijah?" Elijah hesitated. "What do you mean?" "I mean after this. After Easton. Where do you see yourself?" Elijah shrugged. "Alive, I guess." Alden didn't laugh. He just nodded. "That's a start. But I think you've got more than that in you." Over the next year, Alden became something rare. An adult who didn't talk down to Elijah. Who saw the way his brain moved like gears in a clock. Who gave him books beyond the syllabus. James Baldwin, Toni Morrison, Bell Hooks, Octavia Butler. Who introduced him to coding, showed him the logic behind systems, and whispered the truth like a secret. Tech is the new capital, Elijah. If you can build, you don't have to ask permission. You can rewrite the rules. The seed was planted. But not everything was strategy. At 15, Elijah met Tiana at the Easton County Library during a Black History Month essay contest. She had box braids, a biting laugh, and a way of making you feel like the only person in the room. She beat him for first place and he didn't even care. That summer they became inseparable. They talked for hours, about dreams, about anger, about how small Easton made them feel. With her he let the mask slip. Just a little. They kissed once, under a busted streetlight. Felt like hope. But hope doesn't always last. Senior year, Tiana's family moved north after her father got transferred. They promised to write. They tried. But the distance, the pressure, it chipped away. The calls slowed. The silence grew. That winter, Elijah stopped going out. He dove deeper into books, into coding, into strategy. He taught himself how to build websites, took online college-level courses in economics and data analytics. By 17, he was helping local businesses streamline their digital presence. For free at first. Then for cash. He didn't spend the money. He saved it. Every dime. Cassandra noticed. "You're building something," she said one night over canned spaghetti. "I can see it. You don't smile like other boys your age." Elijah looked up from his laptop. "They don't live like I do." She nodded slowly. "True." Then came the second incident. It was April, a week before his 18th birthday. Elijah had just gotten out of a Saturday AP study session and was walking home when he heard tires screech. A black SUV pulled up. "Police. Get on the ground." He froze. "What?" A voice barked again. Guns drawn. His mind went blank. They said he matched a suspect description. 6 feet tall. Black. Hoodie. He was cuffed on the sidewalk, face scraped, heart pounding like a war drum. Neighbors watched. Phones recorded. One officer smirked when he shoved Elijah into the cruiser. "You kids think you're so smart. But you all end up the same." 2 hours later they let him go. Mistaken identity. No apology. No paperwork. Just, "You're lucky we didn't shoot." Cassandra held him that night. He didn't cry. Just stared at the ceiling again like he had at 13. But this time he saw a map. And the edges of that map didn't include Easton. Didn't even include America. The next morning, Elijah skipped school. He took a bus to the city and spent 10 hours in a public library with a cracked screen Chromebook and a notebook full of questions. Where could a black man go and be seen as a person first? What countries offered digital entrepreneurship visas? Where were black communities thriving, not just surviving? By the time the library closed, he had narrowed it down: Ghana, Estonia, Barbados, Portugal, Rwanda. South Korea was interesting but too homogeneous. Canada felt too close. France too nostalgic for its colonial past. But Ghana? Ghana called to him. The year of return had passed, but the movement hadn't. Accra was booming. Black tech leaders were investing. Real estate was growing. Digital infrastructure was expanding. And most of all, there was something spiritual about it. Going back. But forward. That week, Elijah opened a secret account. Started converting his savings to crypto and stable currencies. Began learning Chui and brushing up on international business law. He told no one, not even Cassandra. Not yet. The final push came on graduation night. He had delivered the valedictorian speech. The crowd clapped. A local news station covered it. Said he was a shining example of potential. But afterward, one of the school board trustees, a white man with a tight smile, shook his hand and said, "You really surprised us all, Elijah. You've got that rare grit. Just stay grounded, son. Don't forget where you came from." That smile. That tone. Like Elijah was a show pony that had jumped too high. That night, Elijah sat on his fire escape watching the streetlights buzz. He took out his notebook, flipped to the back, and wrote 3 words in bold, sharp ink. "I'm leaving." So, he didn't know exactly when. But it was no longer a fantasy. It was a strategy. Elijah Carter wouldn't wait for the system to make room for him. He built his own. Elijah Carter stepped off the plane with a duffel bag, $3,482 in mixed currency, and the sharp ache of goodbye still buried in his chest. The airport was humid, loud, alive. Crowd. Ghana. The city hit him like a drumbeat, colors brighter, people louder, the air thick with spice and sweat and rhythm. For the first time in his life, no one stared at his skin like it meant something dangerous. No one flinched when he passed. No one clutched their purse. He could breathe. But freedom was not the same as comfort. The first month was hard. He stayed in a shared hostel with patchy Wi-Fi, sleeping on a cot between 2 windows with no screens. He ate wache from street vendors and showered with cold water. Every dollar counted. Every day felt like a test. He applied for jobs that didn't require a visa. No luck. Until he saw a post on a message board in OSU. Cleaning assistant needed. Immediate. Private estate. Good pay. Must speak English. Discretion required. He called. 2 days later, he stood in front of a gated mansion that looked like it had been carved out of marble and ego. The owner was a man named Charles Adeyemi. Nigerian-born. UK educated. Tech magnate. Worth over $400 million according to the internet. He rarely came outside. Had a fleet of staff. But Elijah saw him sometimes through the glass walls of his office, barking into phones, pointing at graphs, floating above the rest of the world like a god in slacks. Elijah kept his head down. Mopped. Scrubbed. Took out trash. But he watched. He listened. He paid attention to everything. The estate's smart home system. The security patterns. The whiteboards filled with sketched app wireframes. One day, while dusting the study, he saw a flowchart labeled Predictive Market Syncing AI, Internal Use Only. He didn't touch it, but he memorized it. Every night, Elijah wrote down what he'd seen. Not just ideas, but how Charles operated. How he ran his teams. How he layered machine learning with market behavior. Elijah didn't fully understand all of it, yet. But he took notes. Watched tutorial videos until 3 a.m. Studied in secret. He was building again. Quietly. Then came the incident. 3 months in, a new staff member arrived. A British manager named Marcus. White, sharp-dressed, always cologne-soaked. He had been brought in to streamline operations. From the start, he singled Elijah out. "You missed a spot," he sneered though the floors gleamed. This isn't up to our standard, he barked, tossing a mop at Elijah's feet. Once, Elijah overheard him laughing with another staffer. He's smart for one of them. But they always break eventually. The word hit Elijah like a slap. That night he considered quitting. Then reconsidered. He wasn't done learning. But the final straw came 2 weeks later. Marcus entered the office while Elijah was polishing the doorknob. He was on the phone, voice casual, unaware Elijah was there. Yeah, we've got a couple on staff. Locals and one American kid. Quiet, but you know how they get once they think they're close to power. Elijah didn't move. Just listened. Every part of him screamed to say something. To throw the words back in Marcus's face. But instead he finished cleaning. Clocked out. Went back to his room. Sat at the edge of the bed. And smiled. Not because it didn't hurt. But because now he was done. He had what he came for. The next day he typed a resignation letter on a borrowed laptop. He didn't explain why. Didn't ask for a reference. Just left it on the counter and walked out of that marble palace with his spine straight and his mind racing. By then he had over 200 pages of notes, sketches, and startup ideas. Elijah had seen how the rich moved. He'd seen how they treated those beneath them. But he'd also seen something else, how they built empires from data, speed, and precision. Not talent. Not magic. Strategy. He took the last of his savings and rented a small studio on the edge of East Legon. Barely a room, but it had Wi-Fi and a lock. He used a friend's passport to register a business on a Ghanaian hosting site. Created a new identity, Solutions. He wasn't sure what the company would be yet. But he knew the mission. Build something they couldn't ignore. Not just in Ghana. Everywhere. The room was small, the walls thin, but Elijah Carter felt like he owned a skyscraper. He stared at the laptop screen glowing in the dark. No furniture, just a mattress on the floor and his notes stacked in folders like sacred text. On the screen, a blinking cursor waited for him to click submit. He just finished his entry for the Africa Digital Youth Innovation Challenge, an annual contest hosted by a Pan-African Tech Foundation. First prize, $10,000. The prompt: propose a scalable tech solution to empower local economies. Elijah didn't just submit an idea, he submitted a blueprint. He called it Market Bridge AI. It was the seed of something he'd been building in his mind since the day he walked out of Charles Adeyemi's estate. The app would use machine learning to help small, under-resourced vendors predict which goods would sell best in their areas, based on hyperlocal economic trends, weather, and traffic patterns. It was lean. Mobile first. Powered by a stripped-down version of the predictive algorithms he'd seen on Charles's whiteboard. He wrote the entire pitch in 2 days. Designed the interface in 4. Coded the prototype in 7. Then clicked submit. And waited. For 3 weeks, nothing. He kept himself busy picking up freelance digital design gigs, tweaking the MarketBridge backend, and pitching friends on a future they couldn't quite see yet. Some laughed. Some listened. Most shrugged. But Elijah wasn't waiting for applause. He was building for proof. Then the email came. Subject: congratulations, winner of the Africa Digital Youth Innovation Challenge. His hands froze over the keyboard. His breath caught in his throat. He clicked. You have been selected as the first-place winner of the 2025 Africa Digital Youth Innovation Challenge. Your submission, MarketBridge AI, demonstrated exceptional vision, scalability, and potential for real-world impact. A $10,000 prize will be deposited into your nominated account within 5 business days. He read it 5 times before he let himself believe it. Then he laughed, loud, free, and raw. He didn't sleep that night. He didn't celebrate either. He got to work. The first thing he did was register a legal business in Ghana, Carter Technologies Limited. The second was finding a space to work. He couldn't afford an office, so he joined a co-working hub in Accra filled with hopefuls, hustlers, and coders who treated coffee like oxygen. He bought a second-hand iMac, upgraded his laptop, and printed business cards that read, Elijah Carter, founder and systems architect, Carter Technologies Limited. He didn't smile much. But when he handed someone that card, it felt like fire. With part of the prize money, he hired 2 local university students, Kwame and Ajoa, both brilliant, both underestimated. Kwame was a front-end designer with a sharp eye for user flow. Ajoa was a math prodigy with a gift for clean, efficient code. He paid them well. Not out of generosity. Out of principle. He remembered what it felt like to be exploited for brilliance. They built Market Bridge 1.0 in under 8 weeks. It was clunky. Buggy. But it worked. They beta tested it with 5 local vendors in Medina Market. Within 2 weeks, vendors were reporting faster turnover, fewer wasted supplies, and increased daily revenue by up to 17%. That was data. That was proof. Elijah didn't pitch investors yet. He didn't want their money. Not before he had leverage. What he needed now was reach. He applied to a regional startup accelerator called Foundry West, based in Lagos. Acceptance rate, 3%. But the program offered seed capital, mentorship, and, most importantly, visibility. His pitch deck was lean, sharp, and backed by real-world testing. He spoke directly to the panel. He didn't sell a dream. He sold inevitability. 2 weeks later he was accepted. He was 21, black, unknown, and foreign. But when he walked into the Lagos co-working campus for orientation, he wore a navy shirt, clean sneakers, and eyes like steel. The other founders smiled politely. Some underestimated him. That was fine. By week 3 of the program, Market Bridge had doubled its user base in Ghana and soft-launched in 2 cities in Nigeria. His growth rate outpaced every other team in the cohort. Mentors took notice. One, an old tech veteran named Olufemi Akand, called him aside after a presentation. "You remind me of someone," he said, folding his arms. "Hungry. Controlled. You're not just building a product, you're building revenge." Elijah didn't deny it. Olufemi chuckled. "Use it. Just don't let it blind you." By the end of the 10-week accelerator, Elijah had investors courting him. He took none of the offers. Not yet. Instead, he used the final portion of the contest money and accelerator grant to launch Market Bridge 2.0 with expanded features. Inventory syncing, SMS alerts for low stock prediction, and a dashboard for real-time demand mapping. He also added a new feature that didn't exist in Charles Adeyemi's system. Vendor stories. A space where local sellers could share their history, their dreams, their hustle. Tech with a face. Data with a voice. Carter Technologies wasn't just about profit. It was about visibility. It was about rewriting who got to be seen as brilliant. And most of all, it was about control. Late one night, Elijah sat alone in his new flat overlooking Accra, watching the lights flicker across the city. He had just gotten off a call with his mother back in Georgia. She didn't understand everything he was building, but she cried when he told her he had his own company. "You sound free," she'd said. He was. But freedom wasn't the finish line. It was the fuel. He poured himself a cup of coffee, opened his notes, the old ones from Charles's estate, still ink-stained and folded, and flipped to the last page. A quote he had once written in the margin. "If they won't let you in the house, build your own city." He smiled. Then opened a blank document titled, Phase 2, Disruption. Elijah Carter never forgot the floor he used to scrub. He never forgot the sting of being spoken to like he was a piece of dust that had wandered too close to power. But now the tables were beginning to turn. And this time he was no longer in the room to be ignored, he was the room. 6 months after launching Market Bridge 2.0, Carter Technologies was no longer a name whispered in co-working spaces. It was stamped across desks in boardrooms, echoed in WhatsApp threads of startup founders across Africa, and buzzed through international tech blogs with headlines like, "Young Ghana-based CEO rewrites AI playbook for local commerce." Carter Technologies raises eyebrows with explosive growth, refuses Silicon Valley money. Elijah's user base had grown from 500 to 18,000 in under half a year. His app was now live in Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa. Small vendors who had never used a computer before were now adjusting prices in real time using their phones. Corner grocers were managing inventory like corporations. The app was free, supported by a dual strategy of freemium upgrades and licensing partnerships with municipal governments. He had even landed a contract with a West African business coalition to integrate Market Bridge into 3 major metropolitan hubs. The once dismissed kid from Easton, Georgia now had city planners calling him sir. And yet, Elijah remained under the radar in the U.S. Intentionally. That was about to change. It started with a phone call from Olufemi Akand. "Elijah," he said, "are you ready to poke the bear?" Elijah didn't ask who the bear was. He already knew. "Charles Adeyemi?" he asked. Femi chuckled. "He's been sniffing around the Ghana-Nigeria data sharing pipeline. Word is he's heard about you." His name came up at your last investor meeting. Elijah leaned back in his chair. Good. You sure? Femi said. He doesn't play fair. I don't need fair, Elijah said calmly. I've got the truth. He hung up. Then opened his old notes again. Charles's diagrams, Charles's models, Charles's blindness. Charles had the money, the reach, the connections. But Elijah had something more dangerous. Clarity. The breakthrough interview. A few weeks later, Elijah agreed to sit down with Vibe Tech Global, a media platform that focused on rising entrepreneurs in emerging markets. The journalist, Aliyah Mensa, was sharp, direct, and unafraid. So, Elijah, she said, mic on, camera rolling. Your story's circulating like wildfire. Some are calling you the anti-Silicon Valley. He smiled. I'm not anti-anything. I'm just not waiting for permission. And your methods? Some critics say you've reverse-engineered your entire platform off the backs of other models. I studied systems built to exclude people like me. Then I rebuilt them for people like me. That's not stealing. That's justice. Aliyah raised an eyebrow. You're not afraid to step on toes. I used to clean the floors under those toes. Now I build the ceilings above them. That quote hit the front page of TechPulse Africa the next day. Elijah Carter's name was officially in play. Back in Lagos, one of Charles Adeyemi's junior analysts forwarded him a headline with Elijah's face beneath it. Charles leaned back in his ergonomic chair, brow furrowed. Carter Technologies? He clicked through the MarketBridge website, scanned its offerings, and froze when he reached the back-end architecture flow. Familiar. Too familiar. He pulled up an old prototype of his abandoned small market project. Similar logic. Cleaner UI. Leaner code. And better execution. He slammed the laptop shut. Find out who this boy is. Meanwhile, Elijah was growing sharper. With his Ghana team expanding, he opened a second office in Lagos, built specifically for market analysis and vendor support. He hired 2 ex-Twitter engineers, one Ghanaian, one Nigerian, on contract, paying them above-market rates to strengthen the app's AI prediction engine. He also recruited a young Kenyan data scientist, Zuri, who had just been rejected by 2 Silicon Valley startups despite her top-tier education. She flew to Ghana on a one-way ticket. We're not building for validation, Elijah told her. We're building for ownership. They worked 16-hour days. Slept in the office. Ate wache and jollof over product reviews. Every new iteration of MarketBridge got smarter, faster, and harder to copy. Elijah also built out the company's first PR team and quietly began outreach to diaspora investment funds in Atlanta and DC, targeting black investors who'd been shut out of tech's inner circles. He didn't want Silicon Valley's approval. He wanted its clients. Then came the email. From ade@kadegroup.com. Subject, let's talk. Charles had finally reached out. No greeting. No flattery. Just one line. I see what you're building. I think it's time we meet. Elijah read it, deleted it, and walked outside. He stood on his balcony, the across skyline glowing around him. This wasn't the final battle. Not yet. But it was the moment the old world looked up and realized the boy they tried to erase was now the one drawing the map. Later that night, Elijah wrote 3 things in his journal. He sees me now. I don't need a seat at the table. I own the land under it. Next phase, U.S. expansion. He was going back. Not for nostalgia. Not for peace. For reckoning. Elijah Carter stepped off the plane at JFK wearing a navy wool coat and the weight of a war no one else could see. It had been nearly 4 years since he left American soil. 4 years since he abandoned the rusted systems that spat him out, vowing he would return not to fit in, but to reign. And now he had. Carter Technologies was thriving. MarketBridge AI had transformed local commerce across West Africa, giving power to over 100,000 vendors who had been invisible to global markets. His name rang out in Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, and Rwanda. But in America? He was still just another black man in line. It started the moment he reached U.S. Customs. Secondary screening, the agent said without blinking. Inside a gray room with fluorescent lights, 3 officers questioned him for an hour. What were you doing in Ghana? What do you mean, your company? Do you have business permits? Do you know how to prove that? One rifled through his backpack and held up a slim MacBook. You write code on this? Elijah didn't flinch. He had nothing to hide. But it didn't matter. The scrutiny wasn't about guilt. It was about control. Eventually they let him go, with no apology, no acknowledgement, no explanation. Just that cold look that said, Don't forget where you are. Back in Harlem, Elijah opened Carter Technologies' first American office. It was small, barely 1,200 square feet, but it was sleek and intentional. Glass walls. Steel fixtures. The company logo embossed in matte black across the entryway, Carter. No tagline. No technologies. No need to explain. He hired a small team of black engineers, marketers, and admin professionals. Some local, some flown in from Accra and Nairobi. People who, like him, knew how it felt to be the smartest person in the room and still not be seen. The first few weeks were electric. They set up U.S. user infrastructure. Scheduled meetings with municipal partners in Brooklyn and Newark. The buzz from the African media had followed him to the diaspora. Then came the invitation. A private mixer in Midtown hosted by a major VC firm. It was time to shake the tree. The rooftop gleamed with money, crypto millionaires, fintech bros, founders of startups with more pitch deck than product. Elijah wore a tailored suit and a subtle gold pin with the Carter logo. He didn't drink, just observed. He was approached quickly. "You Carter?" a white man with designer sneakers asked, half drunk already. "Man, you're like Wakanda meets fintech. You've got a crazy origin story." Elijah forced a smile. "It's not a story. It's a strategy." Another man jumped in. "Hey, don't be so serious. You people are killing it lately. You people." He walked away before the heat reached his face. Later, he stood alone by the glass railing, watching the city blink beneath him. Someone else came up behind him, another investor type, younger, trying too hard. "We should talk," the man said. "I've got ideas on how to Americanize your platform. Local vendors are cute, but if you want real scale." Elijah turned. "My vendors are not cute. They are the market." The man blinked. "Just trying to help, bro?" He wasn't his bro. The next day, Elijah pitched Market Bridge to a panel of white investors in a downtown office overlooking the Hudson. He brought data, case studies, testimonials, growth projections. They smiled politely. Then the questions came. "Do you think your model can survive outside Africa? Have you considered bringing in someone with more domestic market experience? You've built something powerful. But we're thinking you need to pivot, target a broader audience." Elijah leaned in. "By broader, you mean wider?" Silence. "Thank you for your time," he said and walked out. What followed was worse than rejection. It was resistance. Silent, systemic, coordinated. A PR agency backed out of their contract. No explanation. One of the app's U.S. payment integrations was suddenly under review. A municipal partner in Jersey City ghosted him after weeks of negotiation. Then came the blog post. Anonymous. Slickly written. Titled, "Data Colonialism? The Ethical Gray Area of Carter Technologies." The piece accused Elijah's company of harvesting African vendor data for Western gain. There were no sources, just hypotheticals and fear-mongering. The damage was immediate. 3 partnerships froze. A diaspora investor backed out. His Ghanaian team called in a panic, unsure how to defend against lies they couldn't fight from a continent away. Inside the Harlem office, tension rose. One developer quit. Another stopped showing up on time. His marketing lead asked if they needed legal defense. Elijah didn't sleep. He didn't eat. He read every hateful comment, every sideways article, every tech bro thread asking if he was legit. The whispers he'd outrun abroad were now screaming in his own country. One night, he walked from his office through Harlem, hands in his coat pockets, hood up, headphones off. He passed the street murals, the food trucks, the brownstones, and felt like a stranger in the neighborhood his mother had once dreamed of escaping. He pulled out his phone and looked up the old Dollar General back in Easton. Gone. Replaced by a boutique coffee shop called Hearth and Bloom. Pumpkin spice specials. Macrame plant holders. Artisan toast. On the same tile where he had once been held down with a cop's knee in his back. He closed the tab and felt the world tilt beneath him. He returned to the office, lights off, screen dim. His team had gone home. His phone had stopped buzzing. The headlines had quieted. But in the stillness, his thoughts screamed louder than ever. What if they were right? What if no amount of innovation could undo the way they looked at him? What if they'd never see him as brilliant? What if he'd built something amazing only to die in its shadow? He sat down at his desk, dropped his phone to the floor, put his face in his hands, and whispered, "Maybe I lost. His shoulders trembled. The boy who once walked out of a Ghanaian mansion with nothing but his pride and a stolen blueprint wept. He didn't hear the knock on the office door. Didn't notice the alert on his laptop. Didn't see that salvation, real, human, uninvited, was already moving toward him. The knock came at 7:42 a.m. Elijah didn't move. He hadn't slept. He was still in yesterday's clothes, crumpled at the corner of his desk, one hand hanging off the armrest, the other gripping the last thread of belief he had in himself. The sun leaked through the blinds like an accusation. The knock came again, firmer. He blinked awake. Then came the voice. Elijah. It's me. Open the damn door. That voice. Tiana. He shot up, heart thudding. For a second he thought he was hallucinating, his mind playing tricks after too many sleepless nights and silent defeats. But when he opened the door, there she was. Older. Stronger. Still with those fire-brown eyes that once made him feel like anything was possible. Tiana? She smirked. You gonna let me in, or do I have to rescue you from the hallway too? He stepped aside. She walked in like she owned the place. Looked around the office, half-empty coffee cups, blinking monitors, post-its that hadn't moved in days. Damn, she said softly. You really let the storm in, huh? He closed the door behind her, unsure of how to speak, how to even feel. How did you know? Kwame called me, she said, not looking at him. From Ghana. Said you were ghosting everyone. That your team's panicking. That your silence is louder than any press hit. She finally turned. I figured someone had to come pull you out of your own shadow. Elijah stared at her, still stunned. You're in D.C. You've got a whole life there. I had a life. But you're dying here. That broke something. He looked away. I didn't think you'd still care. Tiana stepped closer. Elijah, we all care. We always have. You just stopped letting people in. He sank into his chair, chest tight. It's all crumbling. I'm losing everything. Why? She asked. He shook his head. The racism. The sabotage. They don't want to see us win, T. They just want our stories, not our success. They want to say, look what you overcame, not look what you built. He looked up at her, eyes bloodshot. I'm tired of fighting. Tired of being the one everyone bets against. Tiana sat across from him. So what? You're gonna quit? Give them what they want. It's not that simple. It is that simple, she said. You either keep fighting or you hand them everything you built and walk back into the box they put you in. He didn't speak. She leaned in. Elijah, you think this is just about you? You think this is just your fall? He met her eyes. It's not. If you fall, 100 kids watching you fall with you. Kids who think, if he couldn't do it, what chance do I have? You're carrying something bigger than you now. Silence stretched between them. Then, softly, she added, you made it farther than any of us imagined. But you can't outrun the fire forever. At some point, you've got to stand in it. That afternoon, they walked together through Harlem. The noise, the steam, the humanity, it felt different with her beside him. He noticed the corner boys laughing. The aunties sweeping stoops. The man on Lennox playing sax like the wind owed him something. I read that article, Tiana said. The one calling you a data colonizer. Elijah rolled his eyes. Of course you did. I also read the 400 comments under it. Know what I saw? What? Black people. Defending you. Tearing it apart line by line. Sharing their own market bridge stories. Screenshots. Numbers. Pride. She stopped walking. Elijah, you built something real. They can't kill it with words unless you let them. Later that evening they returned to the office. Elijah pulled up the analytics dashboard, something he hadn't looked at in days. New vendors were still signing up. Retention was steady. User growth was up 12% from the previous week. Despite everything, the people hadn't left him. He had. Tiana pulled out her phone and showed him a list. What's this? 25 black-owned VC firms. Most are small, but real. And hungry. I've already sent out 5 intros. You'll hear from them tomorrow. Elijah's eyes widened. Tiana. She waved it off. Don't thank me yet. You've still got work to do. The next day, Elijah called a full team meeting. Every US and Ghana staff member was looped in, remote and local. He didn't prepare a speech. He just spoke the truth. I failed you, he said. I let the noise get in. I forgot why we started this. But I'm here now. And I'm not going anywhere. He looked into the camera. Starting today we go louder. We go bolder. We tell our story, our way. Applause burst through the call. Kwame smiled. Zuri wiped a tear. Even the quietest intern in DC clapped like her life depended on it. Over the next 2 weeks, Carter Technologies roared back. Elijah hired a new PR team, black-led, unapologetic, and sharp. He launched a video series spotlighting real market bridge vendors and their stories. Mothers selling produce in Accra, brothers running corner kiosks in Lagos, a grandmother in Kumasi using the app to track her daily bread sales. The numbers surged. Media returned, this time on his terms. Tech platforms that once ignored him now requested interviews. He said yes to 3. Turned down 10. He didn't need their spotlight anymore. He had his own. On the 3rd Sunday, Elijah stood on a Harlem rooftop beside Tiana, watching the skyline burn with gold. I owe you, he said. She bumped his shoulder. You don't owe me anything. Just keep building. He looked out at the city, then back at her. I'm not done, he said. She smiled. Good. It started with a press release. Not a tweet. Not a video. Just a block of clean black text on a white background. Carter Technologies acquires Syncor Data Systems and $14 million deal. Acquisition includes all US-based infrastructure, proprietary AI algorithms, and government contracts across 3 states. Former CTO Marcus Whitman steps down amid executive restructuring. The tech world gasped. Investors scrambled. And in an office overlooking Harlem, Elijah Carter just folded the paper and exhaled. Because Syncor wasn't just a company. It was a keystone. It was also a message. And the message was for one man. Charles Adeyemi. It had taken Elijah 3 months of silent maneuvering to pull it off. He'd used front companies, lawyered up, and buried every breadcrumb beneath layers of shell acquisitions and data licensing contracts. When the deal went public, Charles was halfway through brunch at a Lagos country club. His phone buzzed. Then again. Then again. He picked it up, saw the headline, and dropped his mimosa. Syncor was his quiet power play, a back-channel data pipeline supplying predictive analytics to governments and private retailers. It was crucial to the platform he planned to relaunch. And now it belonged to Elijah. Charles stood frozen. His rival hadn't just caught up. He'd taken the steering wheel. Elijah didn't celebrate. He didn't gloat. He had work to do. The acquisition gave Carter Technologies access to nearly a dozen contracts with U.S. municipalities, urban development, infrastructure analytics, even school food distribution optimization. Most of the clients didn't care who owned Syncor. They just wanted results. So Elijah delivered. He assigned Zuri to head up the algorithmic overhaul. Kwame led the UX team. And Tiana? She took over U.S. business development and walked into white boardrooms like she'd built them herself. In 3 weeks, Carter Technologies went from a black-owned disruptor to an unavoidable data empire. But Elijah wasn't done. He wasn't here just to win. He was here to remake the battlefield. He launched a new initiative, Build Black. A $10 million venture fund to support black tech founders across the US, Africa, and the diaspora. No gatekeeping. No diversity performativity. No dilution of vision. Just money, mentorship, and muscle. The announcement went viral. Thousands of applications flooded in within 48 hours. And Elijah personally reviewed the first 100. Every name. Every vision. Every kid who reminded him of himself. He saw what no VC firm ever saw in him. And that was the point. Charles fought back, of course. He filed for intellectual property violations, tried to sue over the Syncor codebase. He claimed Elijah had stolen his blueprint. But the truth was on Elijah's side. His code was new, leaner, smarter. Built in Accra, tested in Lagos, and scaled across the world. Charles had the arrogance. Elijah had the receipts. The lawsuits fizzled. The press turned. And then, one afternoon, Charles received a small package at his office. Inside was a sealed pack of blue bubble gum. And a photo. A grainy security cam shot. A black boy, 8 years old, sitting on a convenience store floor, tears in his eyes, hands behind his back. On the back of the photo, written in perfect, deliberate ink. You never saw me. But I saw everything. That night, Charles resigned from his board position. His LinkedIn activity went dark. His name stopped trending. And Elijah's? It rose higher than ever. In the months that followed, Carter Technologies opened 2 new offices, Sao Paulo and Atlanta. He hired black software engineers from overlooked HBCUs. He funded a training initiative to teach ex-incarcerated coders data science and cybersecurity. He began developing a new AI model designed not to manipulate behavior, but to respond to local needs and cultural context. The tech wasn't just powerful. It was ethical. It was black. And it was his. One day, Elijah got a message from an old professor at Columbia. "We'd love to invite you to speak to our graduate business students. Maybe even offer a case study on Carter Tech strategy." Elijah didn't answer. But a week later, the university received a crate of Carter Technologies laptops, with a note attached. "Teach them how to build, not how to beg." On a stormy Friday, Elijah returned to Easton, Georgia. He wore a clean gray suit and no tie. The air smelled of memory, rusted swings, broken sidewalks, trains rattling in the distance like ghosts. He pulled up to the old neighborhood. Where the corner store had once stood, there was now a community space, the Elijah Carter Center for Innovation and Equity. Funded by him. Staffed by local educators. Equipped with the best gear his money could buy. Inside, kids were learning to code. One boy, skinny, serious, about 9 years old, tapped Elijah on the arm. "You the guy who built the app?" "I am." The boy nodded. "I want to build something too." "You will," Elijah said. Then bent down, smiled, and added, "Just don't forget, build it so they can't take it from you." Later that night, Elijah sat on a rooftop in Harlem. Tiana joined him, 2 coffees in hand. "You ever gonna rest?" she asked. He took the cup, shook his head. "Rest is for after." "After what?" "After I make sure no kid ever has to go through what I did." She studied him. "You think that's even possible?" He took a sip. "No." Then added, "But we build anyway." She leaned on his shoulder. They watched the city glow. Epilogue, 2 years later. A girl in Nairobi launches a voice-powered commerce app using Carter's SDK. A boy in Atlanta uses MarketBridge data to open 3 barbershops in underserved zip codes. And a young woman in Mississippi gives her startup pitch in front of Build Black's new accelerator in Jackson. Elijah watches from the back of the room. He says nothing. He doesn't need to. Because the next army has already arrived. And the system? It's already changing. From the inside out. From the bottom up. From the boy they never saw coming. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video.